Scaling feels like freedom sometimes. It kind of sounds like freedom, but really what I've experienced is it brings a lot of cracked systems, identity shift, and just a whole lot of pressure. Hi, I'm Shelly Hughes. This is the Unearth podcast. In this podcast, we talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly of entrepreneurship. We talk about the wins, the losses, and especially lessons learned about what it takes to build a profitable, passionate brand. And today I want to talk about scaling. It's something that as you mature in your entrepreneurial adventure and journey, you get to experience more and more people who are kind of at higher levels than you. I mean, you always do, but you just get in different kinds of rooms and you're able to talk to people who have kind of done it in the past. And what I'm experiencing now is just like growing pains as a kid, right? How do you get to that next step in your business that you know you have to get to, right? You have to do it for not just you, but you have to do it for your people. You have to do it for your clients. You always have to make that 1% better every single day. How can you get better? How can you make your things, make your product so much more better? But it comes with a lot of challenges as a leader in scaling. You know, recently we've had to let people go. We've, as a wonderful friend of mine said, not restructured. We retooled the company, and just again to ensure that people feel like they're in the right place, they're in the right position, and they're doing the thing that really lights them up, and honestly, more importantly, contributes to what the business is trying to accomplish. And in the beginning, you know, some of the things that no one really warns you about when you're scaling, you're really changing roles. You know, in the beginning, clients expected me to be everywhere. They expect me to be on every call. They wanted me. And it's so interesting. I just got off a new client call with actually two recently. And both of them said, hey, like, I really like that, you know, we're working with a boutique, you know, firm like yourself. So we can really be involved in leadership and we can talk directly to you and things like that. And it kind of took me aback because I can't be everywhere, right? And if we are staying boutique, that's great. Because I don't want to get huge, but scaling doesn't mean just straight up numbers and breadth of services. It also means really being intentional and profitable of your time, not just your money. And at scale, me being on every single meeting, every single time, it's just not sustainable. And that's something I had to learn. And, you know, disappointing early clients is super hard, right? People are used to me, but what I'm trying to do is build a team that is better than me, that has better ideas than I do, so that I can really focus on other things. I'm not the smartest person in the room anymore, and I really don't want to be. My goal is to build people around, and my last boss, like, one thing I love that she said was she always wants to hire people smarter than her. And I took that and I loved it because it just makes so much sense for an entrepreneur to bring on people who can do the work better than they can. You're not the technician anymore because there's better technicians out there. If you've read the E-Myth, you know what I'm talking about. And so I really had to let go of solving our early clients' problems so I can really start solving our internal ones, because no one else is going to be doing that except me. And so there is kind of an identity loss behind scaling that I've seen. I love solving problems, but now I'm realizing that I'm solving the problems internally, at least, that no one else can. And I think that's one of the most challenging parts of being a leader and kind of the entrepreneur, the business owner, is the hardest problems that people experience. It's always pushed us, right? And that's not just emotionally draining, it's physically draining, right? If someone on my team can't handle a problem or can't solve a problem that I honestly don't expect them to, it always comes to me. And so that identity shift of bouncing between, you know, high level strategy, the crisis solving, the putting out of fires, honestly, the hard conversations, and just, again, solving the hardest problems that no one else can or want to solve. That's now my job. And that's a really challenging shift because I've always been the person that is really client facing, that cares so much about the client's problems, and I still do. And I think I put that into the culture of, one of our core values is focus on the client and all else will follow. But it's really emotionally and mentally draining that no one really prepares you for. You are the one person that has to come up with a solution because no one else is going to. But with that, I think the systems have to change. We had systems back in the day, but honestly, they're all, with this retooling, every single one pretty much has to change. I did a lot of DIY in the beginning, and now we have support, and we're actually paying for payroll, right? I was trying to, we were bootstrapping. So I was trying to cut every single corner I could when it came to, just the operational side of the business that is considered quote overhead. But what I realized is as we are now growing, it's actually taking money out of our pockets because it's making our system so inefficient that if I just paid a little bit of money, like something like Augusto for payroll, just putting everyone in there so I didn't have to pay this one through PayPal and this one through Venmo and this one had a check. Our system is all in one, and I have one person that's responsible for it. Those are the type of things where, man, you're going to have to go back to your systems and recreate all of them. And I recommend you do that now, because towards the end of this year, you're going to start thinking about 2026. If you probably should start thinking about it now. And you're going to realize, man, all of our systems are completely out of date. No one's using them. And then you're going to have to cram. And that's going to be kind of a 2026 problem. Then you're going to get halfway through 2026 and hopefully, ideally, they'll be done. And then you only have half a year to actually be able to utilize them. So definitely start thinking about your systems now. And one thing about systems, and what I really, honestly, a core value that I think I might even add to our team, is something we go through every single week as a team. It's called Always Be Collecting Dots. And it was inspired by Danny Meyer from Setting the Table. And ABCD, Always Be Collecting Dots. I think of it as, I feel like we're constantly trying to move forward, right? It's like we're running a race. And if we see like something weird on the ground, we're going to just leave it there for another time. We'll pick it up later, right? And we're going to continue to run. But what I've realized is that because we're so forward thinking, it takes a lot for us to stop and pause. It takes a crisis for us to stop and pause. And I incorporated this Always Be Collecting Dots, which, as it's laid out, you can really accept things as is, but the B of that is being aware that something's off. Just like being aware, like, I feel like this client might be feeling a certain way, or I feel like this system that we do all the time is causing a lot of drama, right? And being curious about the pattern. So it's like, okay, I've seen this a couple times now, or I've noticed that a client is doing this weird thing that, I don't know, maybe I'll just ignore it. Maybe I won't, but I'm curious that there's a pattern. And then there's doing something about it. And the doing something about it is what supports the SOP. And so every week I incorporated this Always Be Collecting Dots of like, what dots are we collecting? And they're really foundational. They're quiet dots. They're quiet little hints or inklings that like, I feel like something is off or is starting to be off. And I did it because I think that it's very easy for us to be like, oh, we'll deal with it later. We'll deal with it later. We'll deal with it later. To be honest, like, I've lost a client in the past because I've just kind of ignored the little dots instead of being really proactive about it and really trying to fix it. And it's usually silly things, right? But little tiny details can make a huge difference. So the ABCD, the Always Be Collecting Dots, that really fuels our systems. We think to ourselves, what systems and what things we do all the time is causing the most drama, right? And drama might be a strong word, but that allows us to really pinpoint of what's going to move the needle the most. And having an open conversation about, because I can't collect all the dots. Our CMOs and, the other people in my team, they're talking directly to the clients, right? So they're hearing directly from them, even more than I am. I'm talking to them all the time, but even more than I am, that maybe some of the work is being weird. Maybe we have this tendency for one of our services that we really should probably, tighten up. And so it's not just coming from me. I ask the entire team every single week, what dots are you collecting this week? And so it's just become part of our culture to think just like 1 inch deeper about something that you kind of feel like is in the back of your head, right? That honestly, you probably want to ignore because it sounds like a pain in the butt to try to fix, but to always bring them to the forefront to say, okay, what is this, an actual problem? Are we okay? Or should we actually do something about it? And it's funny, on our Friday huddles, I also incorporated spackling the cracks. Because we always say, we don't want things to fall through the cracks. Well, in our Friday huddles, we go through our brags and epic failures. We give out the EF awards, and then we kind of do our lightning round top 3 for the next week. And it's really efficient. I really like it. But as people are going through their top 3, what I want them to think about is like, okay, where are their cracks, right? And let's point them out now so that by next Friday, when we realize that this thing might not have happened, we are just really proactive in thinking about, what support does someone need to get the main thing done for the next week. So spackling the cracks has been really important, but you're realizing as you grow, you have to change your systems. You have to change your SOPs. And, something I just was talking to my chief of staff this morning about is we can't just have blanket SOPs, right? How can we make our SOPs unique and different so that we really stand out, right? We're not just going to go to ChatGPT and say, hey, I need an SOP for podcast production, right? Because they might not think about, okay, how can you make your time more efficient? They're going to talk about best practices, right? But what I'm talking to our chief of staff about is, hey, what kind of AI can we use, right? So that our podcast producer doesn't have to listen to the entire episode, right? That AI can maybe listen to the entire episode, bring out and cut out the ums and stuff, and we just kind of do a quality check at the end, right? So just things to think about there. But, with solving these problems every day, the other thing I've noticed about scaling and being an entrepreneur is just that the emotional labor that goes into it. Yes, of course it's lonely, right? But you realize that more people are going through it than you think. I just put out an Instagram reel. I think it was, I don't know, by this point, it might be a couple weeks ago. We're constantly on Instagram. We're constantly engaging. We're building communities online and things like that. We're kind of being that spokesperson for our brand. And it's so easy to see other people's success and see that as like the norm, right? Because only the successful people, people are only highlighting their successes. It's extremely, extremely rare for people to highlight their failures or their not quite enoughs. And so, a couple years ago, I have many good friends and they have very successful businesses. And I was seeing them grow and grow and grow and be featured on X, Y, and Z. Sarah Burlow, a very good friend of mine from Omley. She's just the most amazing human I've ever met in my entire life. She just got into Inc. And 2 years ago, I would have looked at that and been like, oh my God, why am I not in Inc. yet? Why am I not in Inc. magazine yet? Right? But today I'm like, damn, like good for her. I'm so proud of her. I'm going to shout her from the rooftops. Right? And I think there's an insecurity of only seeing the highlight reel of people and businesses and thinking, why haven't I scaled as fast as them? Why haven't I built my business as fast as them? Is something wrong with me? Am I not smart enough? Like, what is it? Right? And what it comes down to is, first of all, what I thought about was, yes, my business could be much bigger at this point. Our 5th birthday is coming up. It's in August. It's actually August 10th. So when this comes out, it's probably in a couple days. Could have totally had a bigger business by now. I didn't have to have babies. I coached, Krav Maga and MMA for a long time. I took vacations. I did do that. And so if I didn't, and all this was happening during COVID too, I had my family to support with the kid, but I didn't take much of a maternity leave. So it was kind of working basically part-time for a little bit when I had both my kids. And I wouldn't take anything. I wouldn't do it any other way. right? I would rather have a smaller business because it's exactly where I should be now in my life. And I'm so excited too, because now I see just such a clear trajectory of where the business is going to go and really nothing in my way. Of course, I say that and something catastrophic is going to happen tomorrow, but you can't just rely on social media to be your circle, right? You have to go out to lunch with people who are in it with you. Go out to lunch, because if you go out to lunch with them and you say, hey, I'm struggling on X, Y, and Z, do you have any advice? Most likely they're going to say, I'm struggling with the same exact thing. Or they might be struggling with something that you're actually excelling at, and you can kind of swap advice. That's what Laura DiFrancesco and I do all the time. We have very different strengths, and she's able to kind of talk to me and pick my brain about my strengths, and I'm able to pick her brain about her strengths. And it's just making both of our businesses and just that much stronger. So take space and take time to actually talk to people in real life that are going through it, because if you just look on social media, you're going to think that you're a complete failure and you're not doing anything right. The other thing that I've really tried to embrace when it comes to scaling is thinking of prevention burnout really as a discipline. So you should see my schedule. It's something I'm working on right now. If anyone has advice, maybe this is going into scaling that I should be giving my own advice to myself, is if you look at my schedule, I literally have back to back to back to back to back meetings. And I'm reading these books and they talk about tasks, right? I'm actually reading Scaling Up right now. And it was saying something like, write down your top 6 tasks that you have to get done the next day. And do not in order of importance, and do not start the second one before you finish the first one. And if you don't even get to the third one, it's okay, because you're focusing on what's going to move the needle the most. And I was listening to that in the car on my way home from the gym early this morning. And I'm like, when do I have time to do tasks? Right? I do have my Thursday is blocked out completely as a CEO day. It's my strategy day. I try to have no meetings, if I very little meetings, if any. But the other days, I don't have time to do tasks. And so when a meeting is canceled, it's very easy for me to fill it quickly with something that has to get done, so I don't have to work at night, or I don't really work early in the morning now because my baby will wake up. But if a meeting gets canceled, I don't try to fill the gap, right? I try to use that time to decompress, to breathe, maybe to go up and have lunch with my kid, right? It's decompressing on purpose, right? It's not just trying to, okay, I have 30 minutes. Now sometimes I have to do that for sure. But I have found that the pause really is productivity. It's giving my brain a break and allowing me to, because I don't really, I just started taking lunch. There was a few years where I didn't take lunch ever. Like I might be snacking throughout the day, and I just never took lunch. So that's something I've definitely learned, is really being disciplined in burnout prevention. And the last thing here, I truly believe that freedom is built. It's not bought, right? You think that more revenue equals more freedom, but it really doesn't, because if you don't have the right people and the right systems in place, more revenue is just going to cause more chaos. And you're likely not great at 90% of what you do. Great. You're probably very good at it. You're probably good at 99% of what you do, but you're not great at about 90% of it. So as you're looking to get more revenue in your business, and I got this from Barbara Cochran one time, and it's really scary, especially for small businesses, but she said, make sure you have the people before you need them. Because in reality, it takes 6 months to truly onboard someone, right? To have them understand your business, understand your processes. And the last thing you want to do is get a new client or get a new service or whatever, say, yes, we can do this, and then fail. So it's that really scary time in entrepreneurship of saying hey, I really can't pay you for a year, if something doesn't change, right? But you need to invest that in your business, because you know that person is going to 3, 6, ideally 10x their salary. But you need to put them in their lane and in their position early so that you're not saying yes to a project and then scrambling and then having a mediocre project. So that's something I always remember her say, and I'm like, oh, Barbara, that's easy to say when you have $1 billion company or whatever it is, or companies, but it's true. And it's that like art and science of entrepreneurship to figure out the timing of when revenue is going to increase, when scaling is going to happen, and putting the people you need to get to that goal in place, really honestly, before you need them. So I have to say, scaling is not a destination. It really distorts everything that you ever thought was true. It resets your values. It resets your focus. It resets your systems. It resets your identity. It resets how you lead, right? It resets your hiring. You think of hiring so much more intentionally when you're prepared to scale, because you realize that you can't just hire people because they're kind of good at what they do, or it was an organic hire, they got promoted well, we owe them, right, that promotion, or they were an intern and yeah, they were pretty good, so they're going to help us fill in the cracks that we desperately need filled, right? If you keep collecting those dots and you keep trusting your team and keep making space for yourself, you'll grow into someone who can really carry and lead the thing that you're building. So that's my thought on scaling. It's really the hardest parts of scaling that no one truly talks about. And it's very hard to be vulnerable on something like this, but I truly believe that there's not many other people who are. There are people who are, giving all the advice and saying, I'm successful and this is what I've done. But even the successful people have really shitty days and have days where they don't really know exactly what their next step is. And so I'm here to say I'm in the middle of it, and scaling really isn't a destination, right? Like you don't say, yep, I scaled, right? Of course you have KPIs and you have goals and stuff like that, but think of scaling as the journey of scaling, not like I'm going to get to a point and said, I have scaled, right? Because it's never going to be enough. You're never going to be happy. And so just like figure out those puzzle pieces, take time for yourself, take days that's just focused on the business and not the product. And I think it's really gonna help. So guys, thank you so much for listening to this episode. I appreciate it. If you liked it, please follow. It really helps us understand, our audience and what they care about. And it allows us to really create really amazing episodes just like this one. If you like this, please also send it to a friend that you think would benefit. But I hope you have a wonderful day. Have a good one.